I'll just reiterate what I said before. Sorry. So if you have any questions, you have note cards available to you. You can write those down. If you run out of note cards, we have more. I'm sure my mom can supply you with more note cards. And if you think of a question as we're going along, please write it down. We can pass it up right to me, and then we'll get to it when we have a break and then move on to the next question. But for now, my name is Regan. I'll be kind of moderating this panel tonight. And I guess we'll start off by introducing. We'll come this way since we can save Aaron for last. And if our panelists could just say your name, maybe if you're still in school, your grade, or what you're studying, and what else. And then maybe what you do as a career if you're interested in sharing that with us. And then what issues you're most passionate about or advocating for. And then anything else you might think is applicable for today's discussion.
Oh, okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Joy Brown. I am a Chicago resident, new to the league game, I guess, if you will. I currently work for the City of Chicago as a compliance officer for the Office of Inspector General. My passions are mostly around, I would say, youth causes such as education and largely housing policies. So thank you for having me today.
Hello, my name is Catherine Adele. I'm 15 years old and I'll be a sophomore in this upcoming school year. I'm really into music. You probably didn't need to know that. Things I'm really interested in are LGBTQ rights and, like you were saying, education. Also prevention and gun safety is very important to me in schools especially. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Madeline Odell, Catherine's sister. I'm going into 8th grade this school year. I am 13 years old. And issues that I'm really interested in are gun control and or gun violence prevention and just basically equal rights for everyone.
My name is Leilani English. I am also a compliance officer with the City of Chicago's Office of Inspector General, and that's how we know each other. And I have a 13-year-old sister who's going into 8th grade as well, so that's really nice. That moves into my passions, which is mentoring young girls, also education, and just really building self-esteem in young girls. But I'm also on a board, the Youth Advisory Board for an organization called Young Invincibles, which focuses on 4 important areas of for the millennial generation, including workforce development, education, healthcare, and for whatever reason, of course, the 4th one is escaping me right now. But so basically, youth programming.
Environment?
I'm sorry?
Is it environment for the other one?
I think it's environment. Yes, thank you. I think it's environment. But this is nerve-wracking. No, so I forgot. Anyway, thanks for having me.
Hi everyone, my name's Arasha. I'm actually from San Antonio, Texas, so I came up to be a part of this panel. I'm a rising sophomore at Emerson College, and I'm studying an interdisciplinary major, sort of combining a few different things over there. So it's a combination of communication studies, broadcast journalism, and performing arts, creating one of my passions, which is promoting minority women in media, because I'm trying to be a face in the media. Some other things that I am involved in high school, I got really involved with the menstrual movement. So I established a chapter at Emerson College called Emerson Flows, which was sort of just an attachment of Period, which is a nonprofit, completely youth-run, celebrating and providing menstrual products to homeless people and people who cannot afford them. And other than that, I also co-founded an organization called Diabetes Smash-a-thon that is going to be launched this upcoming year, which is just sort of a glass smashing fundraiser, and all proceeds are going to type 1 and type 2 diabetics for the supplies that they otherwise could not afford without health insurance.
Hi, my name's Jimmy. I'm going to be a sophomore at Boston College. I'm studying management of information systems in the business school there. And I'm passionate about just kind of education in general, education technology, and how it can be used to transform lives from a young age, especially.
Great, awesome. When Erin gets here, we will have her introduce herself, but in the meantime, is there anybody who had any more questions that I can pick up for you? That's right, we'll get started with the ones I have right now. So to kick things off, I will ask, do you have any thoughts or ideas about how to get people involved that don't think it's important or don't want to be viewed as too political? I know for myself, you know, politics isn't at the forefront of my mind, but somebody, can you explain how we can get those people involved as well?
I can just talk about what I do in my own personal life. If the more I care about the person, the more I might just yell at them, honestly, about it. But when it comes to strangers, so you don't want to do that. I really pride myself on trying to be as informed as possible about the issues that I care about, right? And so in the way that I live my own life, and yes, that includes a little bit of keyboard activism, right? Just sharing things that I care about and sharing stories and information. And then it has happened, even though people say it doesn't matter, that someone privately will ask me more about an issue. And they're like, oh my God, I didn't know that, what can I do? And then you just have to start, it's really individual to individual, starting those conversations. And even if someone says that they don't care about politics, I try to explain to them that I live in the city and I work for the city, so everything is political, right? I mean, your potholes, whether or not they get filled, which street you live on, and the services you have, and if your schools are closed or not, everything is political. And even if you don't want to use that particular word, you have to recognize that the things that you do civically do matter, or the things you don't do really matter. And I think if you can try to explain things that way and break it down on a level, just getting to what people actually do care about, I think we all talked about what our passions were. That's normally worked for me, but I don't know. What do you do for younger people?
Sorry. No, you can go. Ready.
Okay. I think, like you said, I think using the word politics is kind of like, it might put some people off, or like just, I know people my age, at least the group of people that I've surrounded myself with are all very passionate about politics, and just how it affects you in general. I think no one can deny that what goes on in the government affects all of us, and I think if you can kind of like help people to realize that it's not exactly like who you're gonna vote for, or whatever you kind of correlate with that word, whatever you think of when you hear the word politics, but it's more of just like, this affects you and how can you help and put your opinion in.
Mm-hmm. Going off of what you're saying, at this point we're just trying to get kids our age interested. We're representing middle school and high school, and we're part of our emerging leaders team, so we're helping out with that. And I think it's important to get the word out by, especially social media, I think, to just like, kids need to know that they can have a voice here, and that's important, because we all want to be heard in our own ways. We all want to be like our own superheroes. We want to save the day, and I think League's a great way to do that. It doesn't necessarily have to be focused on your politics. It's a matter of, this affects me, and because we're part of the younger generation, we're going to grow up and have no idea what we're doing. This is a great place to educate yourself on what exactly is going on. Not necessarily having a standpoint, but also being able to just, it's a learning experience. I don't know where I'm going with this. But yeah, it's a learning experience, and if we can get that word out to people without necessarily focusing on the political aspect, just knowing that you can be heard, and hey, like, if you care about this, then by all means, please come join.
Can I just, and to add to that, I mean, I think that's some of the discussion that we were having earlier about creating a welcoming.
Could you speak a little?
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me? Sorry. So, what we were talking about earlier is creating a welcoming environment. And once you create that environment, people are going to be attracted to that cause. And then that's when you kind of let them know what you're more about. So it's kind of like building a passion, and building it, and they will come, right? So creating that environment, that space, the safe space, the welcoming space, the learning space, and then having people come in and say, okay, this is what we're about, and this is how you can get involved, and this is why it matters.
Great. Is there anything else that anybody would like to add before we move on? Awesome. Excellent. Thanks so much. All right, we have Erin coming to join us. If you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself a little bit, telling us what you're passionate about.
All right, hello everyone. I'm Erin, and I promise you my politics are far more current than my timing. So I apologize for that. So like I said, I'm Erin. I'm involved in a lot of LGBT stuff because I'm a queer person. And in this time, it's really, really important to be involved in all sorts of causes, even if it's not one that personally affects you. And I think a lot of, at least my generation, is really disenfranchised and also really disillusioned. And so, because of one and the other thing. And so if it's, because we grew up in a time where, with millennials, we were born being told, like, if you go out there and, you know, work hard and the American dream is yours, and then 9/11 happened and the Great Recession happened, and at least from what I could see, people stopped caring or people got angry and they just felt like they couldn't do anything. And so we need to get those people involved and say, you can make a difference and we can do stuff.
Great, thank you so much. All right, we'll move on to our next question now. So we've been talking a lot about, you know, welcoming spaces, having a safe place, having people feel welcome. Can you maybe elaborate what is a welcoming space? How can we make people outside of ourselves feel welcome within our group?
I can go. I think when someone says a safe space or a welcome space, what they truly mean is a place in which no one is judged. Like we were kind of talking about, oftentimes we are met with disillusionment, meaning sometimes we're welcomed into a false safe space, where we think we're going to enter into a space where no one is going to have an opinion about us before they get to know us and our personality. So creating a welcome space or creating a safe space is all about truly accepting and going past just tolerance. Tolerance in the sense that, like, oh, we can, you know, stand together and I'll just be okay with you being there. But acceptance is actually getting to know them and seeing things from their other perspective. And once you have a safe space, the door is going to be open to more and more people wanting to enter that. And then you can start to reach the rest of your goals.
And springboarding off of that too, I think there's a lot of negative language and connotation that's associated with the idea of a safe space. There's especially in, you know, areas like college campuses where, you know, colleges come out with strong opinions on whether or not they're going to provide such safe spaces or things like that. And from my perspective, I think it's important to realize that that is against the entire point of what they're trying to do to begin with. You know, those safe spaces don't have to be these, you know, cry corners, as they were so beautifully put in the media. You know, things like that. It's an area in which you know, self-expression is welcomed and encouraged, and it's necessary.
I think also in these spaces we need to give people the ability to be wrong and to learn. Because I know we're all from different groups, and I know that we all feel very strongly about where we're coming from. And we have to recognize sometimes that other people have no idea where to start, and so they might ask uncomfortable questions. And you know, there's a difference between asking an uncomfortable question because you don't know and asking an uncomfortable question to get a rise out of someone. And so obviously I'm talking about the former. Mm-hmm. But safe spaces need to, again, be safe and be safe to be wrong.
Yeah.
I think I would add to that, because I really agree with you. Sometimes when people ask you, right, and seemingly invasive questions, I think what we were talking about even before, about building a relationship with someone beforehand, I don't mind if my friend, who is different than me in whatever way, genuinely wants to know something and asks me, right? But if I walk into a brand new space with brand new people and new faces, and then people bombard you because you're the other or whatever. That doesn't feel genuine, and I'm not Google, and I'm not your personal. I'm just not. So I completely agree with you in that if you are building a relationship, you build. It doesn't even have to be like a strong friendship or anything, but if you're building something first and actually getting to know someone first, they would be more apt to answer those things or inform you of things or let you know if you're, being right or wrong or whatever. So I think that's important.
Awesome. So we'll move on to our next question, kind of changing gears a little bit. What types of events or programs would attract youth to be involved? What would make it more fun, I guess, to be involved in League?
I mean, I can only speak from, I guess, the young professional lens, I suppose. But honestly, like a lot of happy hours. That's what like young adults like to do. And it's more so of like a networking kind of function rather than just alcohol. But those types of mixers are really getting that. I mean, you get a large group of people together that are usually very diverse from one another, but they want to either network in common or they just like to indulge, I suppose. But I think those things are really popular with young professionals for many reasons.
Yeah, I think for younger adults, I think the whole the idea of that, like, I mean, free food. I think no one can deny that. And I know we were talking earlier about like a pizza party or something like that. Just kind of making it more of like a fun get together where you get to learn about this and also just hang out with your friends and kind of make it seem just like, I don't know, just hanging out, but also getting that learning aspect from it and adding in an element of fun and just.
Speaking to like the third tier of youth, like in that younger college age, I guess I would say there's sort of two parts to it. One, going off of like the professional age, networking. If I know that there are some individuals that I would particularly want to meet and connect with, I think that's always nice. I know that that can be difficult trying to coordinate and get good faces out there, but like an event like this, having panelists and sending that sort of list out so you can sort of read ahead and be like, oh, I really want to hear from this person, or I want to gain their perspective because they've, been the CEO of this company and I want to hear from them. I think that's always really beneficial. And the sort of second part of it is going back to the first question. I think the basis of something too political just sometimes means that it's irrelevant to me. So if the event is somehow geared towards a topic or a trend that you are particularly interested in, I feel like that will obviously incline me to go to that. So again, speaking to this event, since it has to do with youth activism and how to get involved with the community, you would think, reach out to the youth, tell them this is how to start up a business if you're thinking about it. So really sort of tying it to what they're interested in, and then they're bound to show up because it's relevant to them.
On the topic of having more youth membership, do you think young people now care more or less about politics than in previous generations? And if yes, what do you attribute that to?
Well, it's hard to say because at least I can speak for myself that I was not around for previous generations. But I think it's compared to at least the past one, we are a little more involved because I think it's easier now, at least with social media. That's not getting into the aspects of like the depth of involvement, but we definitely are more involved. What was the second part of that?
And what would you attribute to that increasing involvement?
Again, then, like I said before about growing up disillusioned, we're now realizing that, at least some of us are, that we're old enough to actually make a difference, that we vote, that if we make enough money, we actually get to pay taxes. And yes.
And I think, at least speaking for me, it's this realization that like this is the world that I'm going to inherit one day. Like we're all like people in our generation. We are going to be the adults one day. We are going to be the ones making decisions, and I think it's super important that we learn how to do that now instead of being 18 and having no idea how to register to vote. And I know Mrs. Graham, you've been very good at helping out in the high school with registering kids. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
You know, okay. Sorry. The past week, I'll give a little bit of background. The past week, I've been working with some young people on a polling project for our upcoming November general election, right? And a couple of them are about 19, 20. And one girl said, I know I'm registered to vote. I know I have to vote. I don't really know anything beyond, like, I don't know anything else. And I said, well, who are you voting for? I don't know. And I said, there's so much, for me anyway, being in my very early 30s, I feel like at no other time in history has there been such an access to information, right? And I'm seeing people who are younger than myself, and maybe not you because you all seem really involved, but who, I don't know if it's because they're overwhelmed with that access to information or if there's just, you know, they don't know which information to trust or whatever. But I see that they instead just kind of ignore things. And so, yes, somebody had gotten to this young lady, probably me, I don't know, and been like, yeah, you have to vote. She's like, okay, now what? And so I felt like, well, we're not really doing our job. If she doesn't feel like she can go out and make an informed decision. And I don't know if that was more of a question than a statement. But I don't know that at least the folks that I know are more engaged in a way that is meaningful. So I don't know where I'm going with that. But if someone else can answer that question, then it just
Yeah, I found that too when talking to people. Again, the same thing. I'm registered. I need to. I have no idea what I'm doing. I think not an easier solution, but a way to help that. I know it helped me. I think it was League's website where it just had everyone on the ballot and some of their positions. And that's like very, very basic, and it is helpful to just first find out who's on your ballot, which I know seems really basic, but a lot of people don't know. Find out your district. If we could give people this information or like the resources, like a singular resource, just be like, this is how you see who's in your district, and here are some of their policy positions, that would at least help steer them in the direction of I know a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, when you turn 18, it's kind of like you're jumping in the deep end, sort of, with you have no prior knowledge, and that's why I think having people younger in the league is so important, because it does give you access to that information, and it helps you along that, so it won't feel like such a major jump when you finally have to vote. So.
Yes. So I'm wondering, how do you think we can get people that don't know about the league, that aren't involved? How do we get those people involved and interested in the voting process, and how do we get that information out to them?
I think, I mean, obviously we've been talking about kind of like the millennial group, and social media is obviously a number one kind of big way to get things out. But I think, kind of referring back to the last question, what I love about the generation right behind me is that in my generation, I feel like there's a lot of social media activism, and so that results into kind of like follow, share, and like, but not really kind of like the active part of it is not in the equation, where I feel like the generation behind is like bodies on the line type, let's get out there. And it's encouraging, definitely encouraging to see, and I think that then encourages people who may not be inclined to take a stand and or kind of like actually act to do something. But I do think social media obviously is a really important way to get people involved, but it's being selective with that, and it's also kind of like picking allies and people that you think that are part of that cause and that will support that cause and spread the word. Because yes, everybody can be talking about it, but it's also like who's talking about it matters. So I think it's also finding those links to people who people want to hear from, that are, you know, either whether they're CEOs or they're, you know, entrepreneurs or whatever else, finding people in those spaces to spread the word is important.
I think also partnering with schools is a really, really great idea. I mean, the league registered me to vote when I was 17 in high school, and then I met Heidi again when she was registering people to vote at my college, and now I'm here. So partnering with schools, partnering with clubs in schools or youth organizations, and even if it's not getting people to join the league, it's just disseminating information is, I think, one of the main things that is good to focus on.
Or professional organizations, partnering with professional organizations as well, because that's how we, found League, another organization we were part of. So,
I think another big part as well is going along with like social networking and stuff is accessibility. In the media sphere, like I think the whole basis behind keyboard activism and everything is because it seems very easy to retweet or change your profile picture with a little banner at the bottom. So I think if we made other things like signing up for League or just as easy as Googling, you know, who's on the ballot, stuff like that, if we made it seem a lot more easier, maybe outlined the steps for people who really just don't know what to do or how to vote, they might be more inclined to follow those steps. As making it as easy as possible, I think, will just sort of point them in the right direction, and then they can easily join the organization or get more involved or learn more about it, whether it's through a website or a social network, whatever it may be. Just making it as easy as possible is, I think, the way to target the youth, at least right now.
Cool. All right. So a little bit ago, we talked, Rasha kind of touched on networking at events that might be happening. For your age group, speaking for yourself, do you want to have events with just your age or with all age groups, or what would you prefer?
I prefer diverse audiences. I mean, particularly in the young professional space, I think networking for both professional and personal reasons is important. So you want to have a diverse age group, or, you know, kind of profiles in general. So, you know, there may be something that I'm interested in not doing professionally, but maybe like a lot of people my age have what are known as like side hustles or other gigs that they do that are more their passion projects, and you're not sure, you know, whose audience you might be speaking to or what interests that other people have. So I think the more diverse, the better.
I do agree with that, but I also think a mix is good, like some for all and some for certain age groups, because I know, especially when I was younger, talking to people who were already professionals and who were older was very intimidating, and not everyone has the same depth of experience or same level of knowledge on things. So again, some for certain age groups, and again, some that's a mix as well, is what I recommend.
It's all about being comfortable. I know, like you're saying, it can be very nerve-wracking talking to adults when you feel like you know absolutely nothing on a topic. And even if it's something that pertains to you, if it's something you're interested in, if you're just like, oh, hi, or like it just like overcomes you, and you don't know what's going on, no matter how eloquent you try to sound, you're probably not getting the point across that you want to. So, like you're saying, I think if you had an option to go to like a convention or a meeting with all age groups and you were comfortable with that, then by all means do that. But for people that it takes some time for you to warm up to others and feel like you're getting something out of it, and also contributing to conversations, that both ends of the spectrum would be good.
Excellent, thank you. Moving on, how do you feel empowered in the work that you do within League or outside of the League? What makes you feel empowered?
When it makes a difference. Like, because when you keep doing something and you work really hard and, you know, you see it fail over and over and over again, it gets, you know, it's disheartening. But when you actually see it succeed and help people and make a difference, that's, you know, why I do it, why I think we do it. It's the best feeling, and it's why you keep going.
I think, sorry, having adults listen to you and actually like value your opinions is very, very important to me. I really appreciate it, and I find it to be very helpful in like a confidence thing, like knowing, okay, here are other people that share, like they want to contribute and help with this particular issue that I'm also interested in, and like, hey, we can kind of work as equals here. It's not so much like, oh, you're 15 years old, what do you know? It's like, no, you are contributing, and I think that's important.
Yeah, I think every kid, every person really has this kind of sense of wanting to save the world and wanting to make a difference and wanting to do something about what's going on. And I think kind of having that outlet to knowing that you have somewhere to turn when you want to help out is really just, that empowers me at least to know that like what I do here can make a difference. What I say is valued, and that it's just a great way to know that you're doing something about what's going on.
I want to answer actually with an example. Though I completely and wholeheartedly agree that making a difference is obviously the most motivating and encouraging thing. Sometimes I feel though that sometimes that's just not something that you can see, at least not until later. A lot of it is built on just trust that is going to come with the work that you do. And the example that I want to share, in my college, we recently implemented a program in which menstrual products were provided in all campus restrooms. Just like a little basket at the front of the sink, so if you needed it, you could grab it. No 25 cents, none of that. And it was going for a while until we decided to sort of announce it, so we just sent out an email letting everybody know what the program was, don't take them for home, just keep them there, stuff like that. And while the process was pretty grueling to try and get them in there, we had a lot of meetings, we had to talk to a lot of administrators and stuff like that. The difference that we made, we weren't able to see it until the very end. After the email was sent out, we got lots of responses from workers in the dining hall and other students saying like, hey, you really saved me one day, or hey, thanks for doing this. And I guess it's just sort of something that you have to meet with yourself, that you are making a difference and you might not be recognized for it until later. So that sometimes is pretty empowering, just knowing that as you go through it, you're going to be met with that success later on.
Awesome, thank you so much. So the next question is a question that I have actually thought about a lot, and we talked about womanist a little bit earlier. So would you consider feminist to be a bad word, and why or why not?
I'm gonna just jump right in here before I start saying things when one of you guys is talking. It's not a bad word. I think it makes people uncomfortable because it has the femme in there, and I think certain groups have jumped on that and tried to pervert the meaning of the word. It just means you believe women and men are inherently equal. I feel like that's something most people believe, and I forget who said it, but it's like, it's not you're a feminist or not, it's like you're normal or you're a sexist, is a better way to put it. I mean, the word might be off-putting, but it's a definition most people, go by.
I think that something we were discussing before you got here was, yes, right? It's not a bad word. I don't think it's a bad word personally, but as an African American woman, sometimes feminism does have a connotation of like first wave white feminism, right? Which isn't something I necessarily believe, but it's true. So while I do know a lot of people who, of course, they believe that men and women are equal, and they are normal, there is unfortunately a connotation attached to that word that they don't believe in. And I think that's something, when we were having the conversation earlier, I didn't get to or mention, was that it really comes down to, and especially in the sphere of diversity, it comes down to not everyone's journey is the same, right? And so there are issues that certain groups of women have to deal with as a part of their lives, everyday lives, that other groups do not, right? And so my feminism is going to look different than a transgendered woman's feminism, than, you know, a very, like, someone who's at a completely different socioeconomic level than me, right? I don't have to deal with some of the same issues that, you know, actually I think your illustrations of the menstrual issue, you know, that's a real issue for homeless women, right? And that's something I don't have to deal with. But feminism would be embracing all of those things. And so when people do try to spit it at you as a bad word, you know, you do get defensive. Because yes, I'm a woman, and yes, I believe that I'm equal to men, and I can do everything, and whoa. But I also then have to take a step back and say, well, where is this coming from? Why do you feel that way? And I've had to have those conversations with people, and I don't know. So, I mean, I had to, even in my life, have that conversation right with my husband before I got married. I was like, do you call yourself a feminist? And he's like, oh, yeah. And I was like, all right, well, then we can do this. You know, it's like, so I am passionate about it, but I really do also see the other side of the argument. And I don't mean the misogynistic side of the argument. I mean from other women. But I don't know how do really younger people feel about that?
I think it's kind of tough because I mean, I would call myself a feminist, but I feel like the point of the word is a lot different than how people take it. And I think that, like, at least the way I see it, it's equal rights for men and women and everyone in general. And I think when people see, like, when they see feminine, they're like, oh, these people are trying to take over, and it's just like, it's not really what it means. And I think it's the word itself can be kind of seen as like a bad thing, which I think, I mean, it's not a trouble with the word exactly. I think it's just spreading awareness that it's not like, it doesn't exactly mean like, it's not like how, like, it's not the extremist side of it. It's just people who believe and are willing to fight for equal rights for everyone, so.
Awesome. All right, well, moving on. What is your quote-unquote elevator pitch you might use to persuade somebody to join the league, if anybody has an idea for what that would be for them?
We'd like to hear everybody go.
Okay.
And yours first.
Mine is, you know, trying not to yell at the people as they walk by, but, you know, you live here. Everything, like we were saying before, all of these decisions from on high concern you. You know, like the potholes and education. And, like, I had friends when the new budget was coming down and I go to a public college that were like, it doesn't concern me, and also I'm afraid for my scholarship. And I'm like, well, these two things go together. You have to care. So that's mine anyway.
For me, I know it's not, like, I don't want to force my opinions on anyone. And I don't want to make people care about things that they don't care about. So reaching out to my peers, I feel like it would be more along the lines of being observant. Like, oh, hey, you're wearing this shirt, you're into this, like, or asking them even, like, hey, what are you interested in? Is there any, like, it can be something small, and we could try to figure out a way using league resources to, like, match that interest with something not inherently political, but just something that they could be interested in and feel like they're a part of, because it's all the more interesting to you if it's something that pertains to you, of course. So I think it would just be like, hey, what are you interested in? We have these resources for you where you can, like, make a difference in this general area that you care about. I think that's what I'd say.
I would say, particularly in this political climate, for me personally, it's important to kind of rally my friends, particularly women. I know obviously League is open to everyone, but I think it's important to also just, if I'm involved in League, taking stock of the women that are in my life and saying, hey, you would benefit from this too, right? Yes, we're inclusive, but the women that I feel may be staying silent, this may be a great time to get involved. And I think things are changing like at a rapid level, and so involvement in league and with women's rights issues is really critical. And so I think it's a rallying cry for all women to just step up to the plate and say, league is a place for you, league has a home for you, and this is why you should be involved.
So actually, this is funny. Yesterday, while shopping for this dress, the young lady at the store was like, "Oh, that's a nice dress. What are you buying for?" You know, and I said this thing, and I said, "Oh, it's because I met someone through the League of Women Voters, and they have great events." And she was like, "Oh, I'm into stuff like that." And then I said, "Well, you should go because once a month the Chicago League brings someone to the Union League Club, and they usually talk about great things surrounding voting and elections, and it's really interesting." And that's how I got involved. And she was a young lady who goes to UIC. I learned all about her. Who goes to UIC, and she was 20 years old. And I was like, "Yeah, come on." And so that's my thing. I just go because that's what brought me in. So I just normally share that. I'm like, they have these great speakers. You can go to whatever you're interested in. It's not a huge commitment, but you know, it's great. And that's short and sweet. I gave you all that background, but it was really short and sweet.
Yeah, I just I feel like I'll casually kind of mention it in conversation or flaunt my fancy water bottle or like just kind of use it, and then when they ask, I'm just like, oh, well, guess what? And you kind of go into the just what league is and how like it's such a great outlet and has such great resources that they can use, and you always kind of see like, oh, that's really interesting. I'll look into it because everyone wants to get involved, I feel, and everyone knows that. Well, most people know that. I mean, it affects them, and if you like, you can also let them know that it affects them. But it's just kind of just saying it to everyone I can and be like, there's this thing, and it's just I'll try to make it casual, but just kind of like letting them know that it is a thing that they can do.
I think also giving someone, because it's the overwhelming abundance of choice that sometimes paralyzes people, like when you're voting. If you say, this is an option, this is a great option, I can help you get involved, that helps give someone something concrete to hold on to and to actually join rather than an idea of helping.
So, if there is a league like in a rural town, maybe not in the city, how do you get young people's attention and to know when to meet? Like, how do you grab somebody's attention when there's not this infrastructure of like a city and populace of people?
Feel qualified to answer that because I live here.
I'm sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
I'd say in like very public places, even though it's like a small town, but in schools especially, I think if you want to get the younger population, and like in a central town place like a city hall or library, yes, thank you. Words are, yeah. Just a central place where people walk by every day, something casual, and just like, oh, here's this thing. I might not be interested. I could be totally interested in it, and here's all the information I need. It almost like a board or something like that.
I think social media. Social media is also very influential, no matter where you are. Just getting all that information out there.
What kind of social media? Yeah, like
Go ahead.
I need you to be more specific.
I think Twitter and Instagram, which I know the league has those. I think most teenagers and young adults have that social media, and I think that it gets around a lot easier. There you have more connections on the internet, and things like the word gets around a lot faster than if you were just.
So you are on Twitter, like kids your age are on Twitter?
Yeah.
She's not.
I am.
I'm like.
She's like, I am.
Raise your hand if you're on Twitter.
I don't really use.
This is the one thing I used to be,
Yeah.
and then for reasons I decided it was enough.
Yeah.
But
Not
technically, yes.
I honestly think Facebook is still a good place to go. I
Yeah.
do.
Not for this.
Not for
yours.
okay. Maybe not for y'all. I don't know, but well, just because I mean, I can look at who has a common connection, and then it kind of spirals from there. And I think in the small town situation, there's got to be a place where young people hang, even if it's not, I guess, a traditional place or whatever. So I feel like accessing that via like league kids, right? Like, so kids of those who are involved in league, spreading the word through that kind of would help get the word out to the younger generation.
What about Snapchat?
It's not really conducive to.
Didn't they just add that group feature? I don't know how. Like, it's rather new, and I don't know if that's going to take off, and I don't feel it will.
People
but
are really leaving Snapchat though, and Instagram stories.
Instagram stories.
Not me personally. I don't use Instagram stories, but
How's that? Like, you would have to be the one to make it.
I'm just like,
yeah.
I'm starting to feel my age. To the younger people.
I know.
You guys
What
use
do you
Discord?
Sorry, what?
Never mind. Discord.
I think part of the problem with Snapchat is that it's built on the basis of information that's put onto Snapchat disappearing after a set amount of time. So it's not a great way to disseminate information because it's gonna go away.
Right.
You know, so it's not like a posting board like Twitter or Facebook is. It's more of a how do we stay connected in a group kind of thing. But that group isn't, you know, just kind of as the platform grows, like that group is not necessarily going to stay together just because of the nature of what that tech is. You know, so I don't think that's a strategy at all.
Bouncing off of what you're saying about the Facebook pages, how do you make your Facebook page visible to people that might not be a part of it already?
Advertising.
Yeah, I was going to say, because a lot of the groups that I'm in pay for ads on, and also Eventbrite for events. I don't know how common that is, but a lot of people just look for events in their area, especially when they're new or things like that, like what's happening. I don't know a lot of people, so I go to Eventbrite to look at events that might be going on. And I think
Meetup.
Oh yeah.
Meetup too
Yeah.
is another big site as well.
Nonprofits go on meetup, like for nonprofit meetings, they do meetups, or is that more like social?
No, because I belonged to a nonprofit that used Meetup, because we had a meetup of like 700. It's called Ladies Chicago, so it was a women's based event group here, but we had like 700 members strong, and granted, when we advertised events, we would do Meetup, our Facebook page, and also we have an Instagram. So it was kind of like tackling all of those things, but also the use of hashtags can get you seen by other entities or other people interested in that topic. And I think just kind of like starting from there is probably a good place to start.
And one thing to think. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I interrupt?
No.
Okay. One thing to think about that too is from the beginning, how do you create a coordinated plan that's going to translate across every platform, right? Because kids are moving across every single social media platform in the span of seconds. You know, they're on Twitter, and they're maybe be on Twitter for 10 minutes, and then they'll move to Facebook, or maybe you won't move to Facebook, but we do. Whatever it is, and so it's about from the beginning identifying how are you going to make this translate across all of the platforms that people use, and so that means using coordinated graphics, using language that translates across every single platform. Using the same type of graphics and hashtags, and you know, really sitting down and planning at the beginning, so it's not just a rapid fire like, oh, I should post something to Instagram, and then I'm going to post something to, you know, really sit down and plan out how is this going to be perceived as kids start to move across every one of these platforms, because the more that they see it, the more likely they're going to be to engage with it.
And be consistent with that.
Right.
Like if you post certain types of content to Twitter, you have to keep repeating that content to Twitter.
Right.
So.
And I'll just add too, I mean, I think it seems like communications planning across chapters. So if there's a chapter that's doing something right, like, or that you kind of admire, take a look and see what they're doing or how that can maybe benefit you, or getting that kind of communication going, because obviously it's working on some level for them, or they have access to a wider audience, so that maybe you can kind of like, you know, someone might move or, you know, do it into something else. So gain access to their members as well.
There's only. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh.
I was just going to give a quick plug just to that, and that the League of Women Voters of Arlington Heights are there. I have two younger women who do our social media, and I do think they do it right. I don't do it.
But I think that it also everybody said great stuff, but it's also partnering. I can't say that enough, right? So if you already know that there's something else that's going on, and young people might do that or be there, or whoever your target audience is, if it's sending it out to universities, sending it to dorms, actually sending things to, I know my apartment building has all sorts of events all the time. Like we have our own interwebby thing, I don't know. But they post events that are just in the neighborhood or in the city or anything like that. So, and I know Chicago, well, okay, so that's not a good example because it's Chicago, but there are always like those free newspapers and stuff that you can just send out information and it will land somewhere. It will stick. I don't know.
And I can't stress enough listservs. That's how we found out about League. We are part of another organization, and so that listserv is super active with just both events and opportunities, whether it's jobs or whatever else that their membership might be interested in as well. So if you could partner up with a larger group and kind of get placement via their listserv, I think you'll reach a wider audience and much faster that way.
And in the end, I think there's really something to be said for the different type of voice across every platform, right? The way that, even though you need to curate kind of what you're saying across every platform, the way that you talk on Facebook is different than the way that you talk on Twitter. And there are nuances to that. So use the young people, reach out to people who understand those nuances and understand what their peers are going to respond to as a way of actually deploying that content,
That's true. Get an intern.
Yeah.
Just get an intern, really. Because, yeah, exactly. I no longer know how, I wouldn't know how to reach people on Snapchat. I only follow 4 people. But, my sister would, right? But I'm really good at marketing things on Facebook because that's my generation is there. Yeah. So find someone.
And everything we know will be obsolete in 2 years anyway.
Exactly.
So,
So what, you sound like it's so easy to find an intern. Is this something they can pay, or do they get a
No.
volunteer? Do they have to go out and
Free.
get college credit?
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Heidi's intern.
League of Women Voters.
Yes. Yes. The League of Women Voters Arlington Heights intern, and I intern underneath Heidi. Okay then, or just Arlington, the whole town of Arlington Heights, and Buffalo Grove, Mount Prospect, and all the others. So I don't do this because I get paid, because I don't. And I don't do this for college credit, because I don't. I do this because it's something I believe in, and League can and does a lot of good.
And you heard Heidi say too earlier, there are, 2 employees in the state of Illinois that are paid? So, I think the general expectation when you get involved with something like this, especially a nonprofit, is that you're doing it for not only the empowerment of the community, but the empowerment of your own experiences through that organization as well.
And if you're making the sort of leadership position itself seem accessible to, a lot of youth are going to want to get involved. So if you say, I'm looking for interns, words like internship and leadership and stuff like that, they click in our heads and we're like, yes, we want to do that. We want to get involved. We want those skills to learn. So you don't have to pay us. A lot of us are just going to come and, help you out.
And even on an optics, more kind of selfish level, that stuff looks really great on applications and stuff. Kids know that. We've been conditioned since middle school to know what looks good on stuff like that. Right. So those positions are very appealing. They're very attention grabbing. And even in areas where the infrastructure might not be as good as, a populous city like that, you're still going to find students who are not only passionate, but will feel empowered by positions like that.
Yeah.
So we're talking a lot about media and Facebook and all these different kinds of platforms, but do you ever stop and look at a real bulletin board and get information that way?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I'm older.
I don't know where I fall in the millennial Gen Z thing, but yeah, I look at bulletin boards. Because if you're walking through a hallway and it's there, you're not staring down at your phone, you're looking at something.
Yeah, I think that happens in college too. Oftentimes I'm just walking in the hallways and I'm like, oh, a flyer with information. And it has, a lot of good stuff that we can read. I think, while we may not need to waste a lot of time on that, since everything now is digital and in the media sphere, I think it's not a total waste to create flyers and, you know, increase promotion throughout that. I think that's something that's still worth it.
And now in high school, we have this, it's huge and colorful, and you see all these posters, and it's like this huge blob of information. You're just like, oh god, I'm gonna read all of this. Honestly, that, or maybe that's just me, but like, I don't know. But it's attention grabbing. It's just like, it's right there. It's accessible as you're walking. I don't see why you wouldn't stop and look at something.
And I know at my college, it's through the student life office that you give them stuff and they will put it around the school and take it down. So it just needs to be getting that information into the stream. It's not as labor intensive as it may seem, or at least on school campuses.
Excellent. Well, at this time, I think we're going to wrap it up. So I really appreciate all of you coming out here. All of your words were excellent, very helpful for all of us, I'm sure. So thank you to all of our panelists.
We should have one last thing.
Yes, please. If there's anything you want to add, maybe something you didn't get in before that you want to share.
I have actually one more thing to say as well. I think a huge concern within, like, not only just the League of Women Voters but other groups is sometimes we feel limited that the group that we are targeting, or maybe the group that we are seeking out to help, we feel that other people don't want to necessarily get involved. And I obviously face that very much within menstrual advocacy, as, you know, those that may not menstruate don't want to get involved. And that's totally fine. Sometimes it's that they feel that they're not welcomed there. And that sort of goes back to the whole welcome and safe space of it all. But I think that a huge part of it is getting those people that may not be a part of that group. There's a quote that I live by Benjamin Franklin. Justice won't be served until those unaffected are as outraged as those who are. And I think that that is something that's perfect for the League of Women Voters, or for whatever group that is, that, you know, fear not that the title is League of Women Voters, because anybody is welcome to help lead the charge.
That's a great note. Oh, that was a great note.
Oh, thank you.
So, first of all, I would like to thank you guys for having me. And I think it's really just important to note that the League of Women Voters is at least right now, and the issue we're trying to address or move on with, is a primarily older, white, female organization. And that gives us a tremendous amount of power, because the times where we live, those things matter to the older white politicians who are in power. So it's really, really important that we use that to elevate other voices that aren't heard. And I'm white, and I don't know how to do that, but I just know that we should ask people who know what the heck they're talking about to do that, and just lend them our support in whatever way we can, and whatever way they'll use us.
Yeah, I think, oh, well, yeah. You know, I think it's also recognizing, for me, like, diversity, just like feminism, is not a bad word, right? Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean one thing. And you have to decide what that means to you, right? Because it's also, I think we were talking before, it's diversity of thought and ideas, and it's not just gender, it's not just race, not those things. But it is important, if you want to, talking about the League and other spaces, if you want to diversify an organization or workforce or whatever, you have to diversify your own life. And I think that, so when people sit in a room, they think, how can I bring more people into this thing that I'm involved with? Well, where are you going to find those people if they're not in your own life, right? Like, I don't know. So working that out for yourself personally, first and foremost, is the most important thing, because otherwise then it seems inauthentic if you're trying to bring someone into a space that you're always in. So if I walk into a room and I only see people that look exactly like me, my first thought is, what, you know, unless it's like a family function or whatever, which even then, but even if it's like a family function, I'm like, what can I do, right? And I think a lot of people don't have that thought when they walk into a room and everybody looks exactly like them. They're like, this is cool. And so if that's not your first, inclination, then you're not going to work to diversify the things that you're in, right? But also thank you for having me. This is great.
Did we have a question?
What? It's interesting. This afternoon I was talking with some other people at lunch, and one of the women works in Haiti, in a village in Haiti, to help them develop solar power for energy. And she made a comment. She said, anytime that we've given aid, foreign aid, or given aid, it's never worked. But when there's an investment, it's successful. Well, aren't we talking about an investment of skills, talent, interest of all ages of people in the work that we do? Isn't that what we're talking about? And of course, and then I look at this and I think, when there's an investment, it's two-way. You learn from the older folks, but we ought to be open to learning from you. Then you talk about it. I always think of the song from The King and I. When you become a teacher by your students, you'll be taught. But you aren't the students here, you're peers, right? And I hope that, and it doesn't work to work with peers to be directing them all the time. They have to have an investment and share in the leadership.
No, I was just going to say, obviously, just by you guys being here, you guys are willing to listen. And so that is one of the first keys in terms of diversifying any spaces, to listen to someone that is different from you. So I think the league is obviously taking steps to do that, but it pays dividends when everyone's willing to listen to each other. So I think events like these are wonderful to kind of like bring other voices to the table. So on my behalf, and I guess on behalf of the panel, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.